Welcome to the WayMaker Fireside Chat Podcast, sponsored by Dove, the co-founders of the Crown Coalition. Our purpose is to grow your life and change the world. In this episode, we're joined by Matthew Cherry. Matthew is an Academy Award-winning director, writer, former NFL player, and New York Times best-selling author of Hair Love, an animated short film and children's book. Today, we'll discuss his journey from NFL player to movie producer and writer, his passion for opening conversations through storytelling, to modern issues in Black culture, and getting started with what you have. Let's get started.
Hi, I'm Louis Carr, and I am the founder of WayMaker. And today on the WayMaker Fireside Chat, we have the privilege of talking to Matthew Cherry, Academy Award winner, former NFL player, New York Times bestseller, and he's from my hometown, Chi-Town, Chicago, Illinois. Welcome, Matthew.
Oh man, glad to be here, man. Thanks for the warm welcome.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you taking our time to share some of your story with us. We are both from the same town and from the same type of background. Tell us, how has your experience and your journey sort of influenced the way you tell stories and the things you tell stories about?
Yeah, for those that don't know, Chicago is a very, just your classic hardworking city. People definitely, it's not about the glitz and the glamour for the most part. It's really just about hard work and just putting in the time and eventually being able to rise to a high level. So for me, I've always just valued communities and people that are of that same ilk. So a lot of the stories I like to tell, really just about your classic, average Black American family. Like people that are working hard, trying to make it. And, you obviously we got some regional things that are always really cool to feature as well. But, a lot of the stories I've done have been featured in Chicago. My latest series, Young Love, was actually featured on the west side of Chicago. And so, I just love like representing the city and just representing the people that live there.
So let's talk about Hair Love and what influenced you to tell that story in the way that you told that story, and how has the Crown Act and that legislation sort of really energized you and pushed you to tell stories about hair?
Yeah, Hair Love was really born out of a moment in time, did the Kickstarter back in like 2017 and, just was noticing like a lot of negative depiction of Black fathers or lack thereof, oftentimes like, all the worst stereotypes, in terms of mainstream media, there's a lot of things that are featuring us in that way. And, I saw animation as a really strong way to like give something universal appeal. And also just, there's also just a lack of representation in animation too. Like you weren't seeing a lot of, this is before like Spider-Verse, before Moana, before, Coco even, this was like something that came like kind of right before a lot of this big diversity and animation wave happened. And so, it was like on a few different fronts, wanting to tell a story about a Black father, wanting to tell a story about a young Black girl so that the other kids can like see her and represent themselves in her, and then also just wanting to represent Black hair, in this medium. And so that was really the big inspiration for it. And then, obviously hearing all these stories about all these different people that have been dealing with different hair discrimination, Andrew Johnson, the wrestler, in New Jersey, countless little Black girls that are trying to be cheerleaders told that to take their hair out, people in the workplace, lawyers and doctors and things saying that they can't wear their hair a certain way. And so a lot of that was happening right around the same time. So it was just like this really big pot of just like inspiration and wanting to tell a story that felt universal, but also very specific into like, a Black family's household, set on the west side of Chicago. And so, the Crown Act was something that I learned of kind of as we were in the middle of this. And it was just really great. It was sometimes like the universe kind of conspires to, move mountains and kind of like show you're on the right path. And seeing that, Dove and, all the different Crown Coalition partners are coming together to create this was really amazing because, we had heard a DeAndre Jordan story, who was a young man in Barber Hill, Texas, who was told that he can't graduate unless he cut his hair. And all these other stories too. And it was one of those things where like I was hoping that we were gonna, get on the big stage at the Oscars so that we could kind of draw attention to it. And it's just been amazing just seeing all the progress. Really feels like people are able to fully be themselves. And I think that's really what the Crown Act represents, just like people being able to like be who they want to be, however they want to be. And it's okay to be an individual and everybody doesn't have to look the same.
Since Hair Love, has the conversation changed? What type of feedback did you get, especially after the Academy? Did the conversation change, and did people say, "Hey, I didn't know," and how can I be supportive?
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think it was obviously we were a part of that, but we weren't the only part. Like mainstream media, there was such a shift in terms of like, actresses like, Issa Rae and Kerry Washington, Viola Davis kind of rocking their natural hair and being very big advocates for just, being the individuals that they are and, looking great in it. And so, definitely there was a conversation, definitely a shift. Now when you go to Target, you see, when there may have been one or two books, now like you got whole sections that are just like featuring books that speak to diversity and inclusion. And also, oftentimes you see Black characters depicted with their natural hair. And so it's just been really awesome just to kind of see the gradual shift. Obviously nothing is ever going to be 100% there, but you're definitely seeing a lot of waves in terms of just things that you never saw people wearing natural hair in before, things like the Met Gala and Fashion Week, it's just been WNBA, it's been really awesome just to see like people feel more confident in that they can just present themselves as they are and not having to conform.
So Matthew, kind of give us some insight on your journey. You played for the NFL, and I'm assuming that you probably played for Loyola Academy. I'm making that assumption that you're a high school player. You went on to college and played. So how did you come from this great athlete and to storytelling and writing and things like that? How did you make that transition? Was it something that was always there and you just decided to take the leap, or how did that happen for you?
Yeah, very much always there, like I wasn't really like hip to like the biggest indie films back in the day when I was growing up, but my parents always were advocates of film and television, always seeing like these worlds and shows where you kind of wish you were living in that same life. I think of like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, for example. And like, yeah, going to Loyola Academy, which was this big private school up in like the north suburbs, like it really was just about my parents wanted to put me in positions where, they felt like I had the best foot forward to try to really win. And so when I was at Loyola, they had like this radio TV club. And so I was a part of that. That was kind of like probably one of the earlier bugs. And then I majored in radio TV broadcast in college. And, was a part of like the local radio station and just like trying to really figure out what the footing would be. And when I made it to the league, I had met some people that worked in LA, like in the film industry as production assistants. And they had told me about a program called Streetlights. And, long story short, when I retired, I applied to the program, got in, moved to LA and just like kind of started from the ground up, started as a production assistant, which entails like all the odd jobs on the set, taking out the garbage, moving the director chairs around, bringing the talent to set, giving out the scripts, all anything that you could think of that nobody wants to do on the set. That's what we ended up having to do. And it was just a great, like, film school in a way, because like you're actually being on set, seeing how the process works every day. And seeing people like Mara Akil and Anthony Hemingway and all these like great directors and actresses, like I was like, I think I could do this too, just like you gradually work your way up, start doing like shorter form content like music videos and short films, eventually graduated to doing like a couple of independent feature films. And then, now I work a lot in television. So, shows like, Blackish and Ghosts and Saved by the Bell and Bel Air, they're all shows that I've worked on. It's been pretty cool. So, you always
Matt,
growing.
So how do you take that step back? I mean, you coming from the NFL, which is one of the biggest industries in the world. How do you take that step back to become a production assistant? All right.
When I got in the industry, there wasn't like this big wave that we see now with like people like Dwayne Wade and LeBron James, like athletes that are very like conscious that their careers aren't going to last forever. And, you see them starting production companies, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, that none of that really was happening back then. And so, for me, it helped in a way that I wasn't like this big time player. Like I was an undrafted free agent, kind of bounced around, knew pretty early on in my rookie season that like if things outside of my control didn't happen, like a player getting hurt or whatever, that wasn't going to get an opportunity to really have a long career. And so, with that said, I was already pretty humble, what I'm saying? Like I didn't have like your typical, like, okay, I'm like the big dog, scoring 100 touchdowns in a career type of thing. I barely got in or any playing time. So I had a lot of like off time to just like really think about my career. And so it really wasn't that big of a transition, you go from like basically being served to being a servant. And, I think just the humbleness of just my whole life, I always felt like I was very adjacent to like great success, but I didn't really have the opportunity to have that for myself. And so like sometimes that's good to be like in the background a bit and kind of witnessing, people really living out their dreams in a major way. And for me, I just, I felt it was a hard thing just being like, damn, play sports 20 years of my life. It's probably not going to be my great success is probably not going to come from this. But, I wanted to put in the work so that my great success could come in from film, and that's kind of how I played.
Tell the audience about from making Hair Love to the stage of the Academy Awards. I mean, I'm assuming when you made Hair Love, you did not think you were going to win an Oscar. All right. Well, maybe you did. So I don't know. All right.
I mean, now it's after the fact. I can be more transparent about it. But man, I knew kind of from the first day that the idea hit me. I had called my manager and I was like, look, basically, I literally said this pretty much verbatim. Like, I got this idea, and I feel like if we do it right, I think we got a chance to win an Oscar. That was like the first conversation I had with my team. And and I think a lot of it with that, it's less about I think the arrogance of that statement, and I think it's more about just like sometimes you have to, being a director, you're pretty much a leader, and you like have to set the tone. And so if you kind of come to the table saying that like, all right, this may be okay, we may do something decent, that's going to be the energy that everybody has. But like kind of establishing that goal from the outset, it let everybody knew that if they came to this project, we were going to try to work on a very high level, and that the bar was really high, and we had to kind of continue to push ourselves to like continue to make it better. And so I don't know, man, it was one of those things where like, sometimes you set an intention and then like the universe conspires. And I really feel like, because the thing about the Oscars is like, it's less about the work sometimes, and it's more about like the year and like your field, you know what I mean? And we happen to be the only short film that played in theaters that year, before like, Disney would always have a movie in a theater. 9 times out of 10, the movie that was in the theater would be the one that would win because they had the most visibility. So just all these things that we had no control of kind of like happen. And Gabby and Dwayne came on board. They helped us out, kind of getting DeAndre to the Oscars. So it always felt like if we did what we were supposed to do, that would be a possibility. And then, it just happened to work out.
So, one of our missions, Matthew, is to educate, motivate, and inspire people to live their best life. What advice would you give to young filmmakers who are listening to this and say, how can I be a Matthew Chair?
Well, I mean, look, my second movie that I did, we shot it on an iPhone, for like very low money, like $15,000. We got into like, one of the bigger festivals in the country, South by Southwest. So the thing I always tell people is like, start now. You know what I mean? Like I growing up, always felt like movies had to be these multi-million-dollar affairs. Like, you had to like work with the top talent in the world, the Denzels and the Will Smiths, and you didn't have access to these people, then you pretty much should just hang it up. You know what I mean? Because like this is a world that we don't come from. But in being in it, it really is just about like having that hustle and that drive to really like not take no for an answer. And so I always say for even young kids, like start now. I fully believe that there's going to be a high school person somewhere who's going to like do a film, and it's going to be so pure because they haven't had the world kind of beat them down yet and tell them the things that they can and cannot do. And, I think a filmmaker in high school is going to end up winning the Oscar for Best Picture one of these days, because I think that they're going to be coming from it from a really pure place of mind. And, I think that's really what it is. Just, you just got to get into it as soon as you can. The only way you can be a writer is to write. The only way you can be a director is to direct. And the only way to make a movie is to make a movie. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to have to work with the resources that you have. You look at Ryan Coogler, his first movie was like, I think the budget was like less than $1 million for Fruitvale Station. And now, he's doing $250 million movies for Marvel. You have to start somewhere. So you might as well start now. And, take a lesson from each production, work with friends, don't be scared to put yourself out there and to try new things, because good things come to those who try and put their foot out there.
So tell us about some of the projects, things that you're working on now that we can look forward to.
Man, a lot of them for that, Hollywood is tricky in that a lot of times you can't really fully speak to what you got coming up. But it's a little bit of everything, man. I love all forms of film. I love plays. Like, I love hopefully do a Broadway play, somewhere in my future. Got some documentary things that I'm working on. Some more animation things, just a little bit of everything. I really love the whole breadth of the film industry and just really want to continue to have different kind of arms in each thing.
Matthew, we believe here at WayMaker that every successful person has had a Waymaker. Tell us about some of Matthew Cherry's Waymakers.
Oh man, I think anybody that has experienced like a big success, it really comes down to your team. I've been with my manager, Monica Young, for like going on almost 20 years now. When I first moved to LA, we started working together, and having a good support system is everything. So she's definitely one. Jordan Peele was a big one. He came into my life like around the time Hair Love was cooking in 2017, and he helped me get my first opportunity to direct an episode of television. And so I've done like almost 20, almost 30 episodes of TV now. So he was really a big one. And then like Barry Jenkins too. He was somebody who I met early on in his career after he did that movie Medicine for Melancholy, and he's just always been so supportive. And just somebody who sometimes you need to see somebody that looks like you kind of doing it in order to think that you can do it as well. And these are all people who I would consider that. And obviously, your parents, my folks are always very supportive, always came to all the games, and sadly they passed away before a lot of the film things started taking off. But it always starts with your family.
So we all sort of think about at some point in our careers legacy. As a storyteller, what type of legacy do you want your stories to sort of leave on communities of color?
I want people to have good feelings, when they think about my work. I want people to be entertained, to crack a couple of smiles, and it leave people kind of better than when they came into it. That really is the goal for the work. And to have a diverse body of work that's a little bit of everything, from action to horror to thriller to romantic comedy and everything in between. And to feature strong Black protagonists that are fully complex characters, and just continue to humanize this as much as we can. That would be the goal.
Great. Final question, Matthew. As you continue down your journey and path, how are you trying to be a waymaker for people who started and look like you? What are some of the things that you're doing to sort of make a difference?
I think a big part of it is just, because everything is so social media based these days. Like, I think it's really easy when people like reach out, trying to get a helping hand on something, to kind of ignore that. For me, I always try to be the first person to like show love if I can, be that donating to a young artist Kickstarter campaign, or, sharing it. Sometimes sharing it could do more than even donating. Sometimes, offering advice, having people come and shadow me on set so they can kind of see, like kind of all the things that I wish had happened for me. I try to do for young folks coming up. I didn't get those same opportunities to really like be able to look over a director's shoulder and like see how the sausage was made or whatever. I had to kind of like learn it on my own, through trial and error. And so however I can to help, younger artists have an opportunity, be that hiring them, be that giving them an opportunity to like shadow or just be around, these are all the things.
Matthew, thank you for this. Appreciate all the things that you do. Wishing you the best of luck on your creative projects and endeavors, and appreciate you sharing your story and the work that you've done with the WayMaker audience. So thank
Oh,
you
man.
very much.
No, I appreciate you, man. And, shout out to Chicago, man. Great job.
Thank you, my friend.
All right.